For anyone who wasn't around back in 2020, I started pastoring this church right in the middle of COVID, which was a weird time. By my first spring here, spring of 2021, things were still far from normal. I'll give a minute for the siren. Things were still far from normal then, come that first spring here, 2021. I was adjusting to being here. I was adjusting to getting to know you all, to getting to know the town, the house where I live. And then one day in March, I remember stepping outside. I was probably half distracted by one of the many logistical things on my mind related to reopening or whatever that were part of life at that time. And as I stepped out, there was something that just interrupted me in whatever those thoughts were. I saw a circle of these delicate white and pale yellow narcissus flowers staring back up at me. I think there's a picture. This isn't them, but this is some like them on the front of the bulletin. I noticed that their stems were growing up over the previous days and weeks, but I didn't know what they were. And then to see those flowers was a moment of grace, a moment of goodness, a moment of joy. It was a reminder of the faith that is part of gardening. It was someone before me who planted those bulbs, knowing what they would look like, knowing they'd keep blooming beyond them in their season. And they did. They kept on blooming after that gardener moved on. And here I was seeing the grace of them. It strengthened my faith to see blooms from someone else's faithful planting. So maybe growing in faith starts with this kind of grace. FUMC Westfield's mission statement says we seek to follow Jesus by sowing seeds of grace, love, and joy. We don't make the seeds grow, but we plant them, entrusting them to the soil. Or to use Jesus' vine image, we don't make the fruit grow, but we entrust ourselves to the vine. Our spiritual forebear, John Wesley, encouraged Methodists to entrust ourselves to the vine by engaging in what he called means of grace. Means of grace include things like reading the Bible, worshiping God together, receiving the sacraments, prayer. Means of grace are those things that remind us of God's grace and help it soak into the soil, help those nutrients soak into the soil. There's a spiritual writer, Marjorie Thompson, who thinks of things like means of grace as being like garden tools. So the tools aren't the thing that make the seeds grow, but they make the soil ready so that the seeds have the best conditions for growing that they can get. Means of grace, those practices of faith that we engage in, are kind of like that. They don't force the seeds to grow, but they make the soil ready. Through soaking in those moments of grace, through seeking out means of grace, through participating in spiritual communities, we entrust ourselves to the vine. Grace, love, and joy grow up in their time, in their season.